Yo, what it do, YouTube? It's your boy Key coming at y'all boys with a brand new video, and today we got another one for y'all boys. Now, with that being said, man, we're gonna go ahead and get into this video. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Let's check it out.
In 2013, two kids named Timothy Brooks and Neil Scott had dreams of becoming drug kingpins. They both had recently graduated from Haverford High School, a prestigious $35,000 a year private school located in the suburbs of Philadelphia, with alums including Olympic athletes, award-winning actors, and more. It was one of the finest academic institutions in the country, and these two guys wanted to control every single drug being sold there. Through strategic planning, greed, and threats, the duo grew their operation from a small-time hustle into a full-blown drug ring, recruiting numerous high schoolers and college students to push their product. But their efforts didn't end at Haverford. They set their sights on dominating the entire Philadelphia suburban drug market, targeting numerous local high schools and colleges in the process. But as their ambitions grew, so did the risks that eventually spiraled into one of the most shocking drug busts in private school history. The township of Haverford is a tranquil one, to say the least. With a population of just over 6,500 engulfed in its tree-lined streets, well-maintained lawns, and family-friendly atmosphere, most would consider it the perfect place to raise a family.
What makes people who come from a family like this want to run a drug ring? Like, you're literally bored. That's the only thing I can think of. You bored or you just greedy. You know what I'm saying? And you just want to do something that you ain't got no business. You feel what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. $35,000 a year. Your parents pay $35,000 a year for you to go to high school. Bro, there's some people right now who got a school bill of $5,000 that parents can't pay. You gotta.
This safe, idealistic neighborhood doesn't come without a cost. The average annual income of a household in Haverford is over $266 grand. Pair that with an average home price of around $1.2 million, and it's clear that every kid in this neighborhood has a cocaine addiction. Okay, that's a joke, but the families that live here are pretty above average in terms of wealth, which makes it the perfect place for an institution like Haverford High School. This prestigious all-boys prep school is known as one of the finest high schools in the country and has produced all-star humans like gold medal Olympians, MLB players, actors, singers, Super Bowl champions, congressmen, Ivy League professors, and more. It's highly regarded by families within the township as it boasts a strong sense of local pride, active community involvement, and excellent schooling. Hence the price tag of $35,000 a year. And don't get me wrong, that's a shitload of money for just high school, but it seemed to be worth it for these parents, and especially their kids. One graduate claimed it was an absolutely incredible school to the point where it was perfect. A statement that a kid named Neil Scott would agree with. Despite the story taking place in the lavish...
Maybe I'm just spoiled to how it was at my high school, bro, but I couldn't imagine going to no school that's an all-boys school. Like, bro, what, during high school? Stop it, my nigga. Like, but there are some boys schools that I know are partnered, like, very, very close ties with an all-girl school. So, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of even, like Morehouse and Spelman. Spelman girls got a Morehouse brother. Morehouse people got like a Spelman sister or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So they still entangled even though their schooling is separated. But I couldn't go to no just all boys school.
For township, Neil actually grew up in a modest one-story home in Paoli, Pennsylvania, about a 19-minute drive from Haverford. His father, who was a carpenter, sent him to Conestoga High School, a way less expensive but very respectable high school. Here, he played lacrosse and was pretty good at it. So good, in fact, that Haverford recruited him on scholarship his junior year to play goalie for them. He started playing lacrosse and water polo while, of course, also receiving all the benefits of his new prestigious
See, that should have spoiled you right there too, though. So he wasn't the money guy like the other kid probably was. He come from a regular middle class family, but because of his athletic ability, he was able to
institution. To most of his classmates, he seemed like a typical high schooler, a funny, sarcastic
These
kid
people
who
look
enjoyed the
old as
occasional
shit.
toke and solo cup party. But after he graduated in 2008, something changed in him. Whether it was the pressures of adult life creeping up on him, something going on at home, or whatever else, Neil was starting to become a different person. He attended Connecticut College fresh out of high school, and as you could have guessed, played lacrosse for them. But it seemed like he deteriorated from the all-star goalie he used to be. His teammates described him as a mediocre athlete at best, some even going as far as labeling him terrible.
Damn.
He would also get pissed off abnormally often. I remember him getting heated, like if you fucked with him or whatever, he would kind of snap. Neil stopped playing lacrosse after a single season and quickly engulfed himself in the typical college life of partying, smoking copious amounts of weed, and making fake IDs.
He was lost.
Okay, you probably didn't make fake IDs in college, but if you did, thank you for your service. But Neil making fake IDs got him kicked out of school after just 3 semesters of attending.
Somebody
and
had
he was
to
left
tell on
with
him,
nothing to do. With no concrete plan in mind, he moved to San Diego and stayed in a bungalow on a beach to flee the drugs and trouble back home. Smart move to move to California when you're trying to get away from drugs. But thankfully, one of his old Haverford lacrosse coaches was able to get him a coaching job at the LAX West lacrosse program. He worked there for a little bit while also holding a job at a medical marijuana dispensary. So much for staying away from drugs, before moving to another coaching position, this time at a youth program. But like his college career, that didn't last long either. Only 2 months into the position, he cursed at a 10-year-old child, revealing his anger issues had stayed with him from college. After being fired, he once again fell into his old routine of being a druggie, but this time with harder drugs
But
like
you just
Xanax.
gotta think, and like, I really wonder, like, what was it? You know, like, what made you just snap? What threw you off? What made you into this kind of like person that nobody would want to be around? What happened?
And other prescription pills. His boss at the youth program said it best. He started losing grip with reality. With seemingly all hope lost, Neil moved back to Philadelphia with absolutely no clue what his future held. Well, except for one idea. When he returned home by late fall of 2013 with no cash in his pockets, he hit up an old Haverford teammate, a guy named Stocky Euler, and pitched a genius money-making idea. Yo Stocky, it's Neil from Hford. Just got back from Cali, got a bunch of greens. Know anyone around Philly who might be interests? Ha ha ha, yo brother, how are you? Like, weight? Doing pretty well, man. Yeah, got a lot of weight. Constant supply, great numbers. So yeah, Neil's fantastic idea was to deal drugs. However, Stocky wasn't going to be Neil's partner in all of this. A kid named Timothy Brooks was. Timothy had a very different upbringing than Neil,
Yeah, he was
and
rich.
by different, I mean he was way more loaded. He grew up in Villanova, Pennsylvania, where there are
By the
wide, leafy
university.
streets, houses far enough apart to where you don't have to talk to your neighbors, and an average household income of over
Shit.
$400,000. His
Now,
father,
you gotta
who was
think
an
about it, bro. The average household income in Villanova is $400,000. For the average American, it's $50,000. Your parents make 8 times the average, and you sell drugs.
executive at a local HR firm, had more than enough means to afford Haverford High School for his son, and it's safe to say his son enjoyed it thoroughly. Timothy was your typical cool kid type of guy at Haverford. He was the captain of the lacrosse team, played squash and golf on the side, and was super successful in anything he did. And to top off the persona, he hated school. If someone ever decides to write like Shakespeare again, they should be beat up. His gifted athletic abilities landed him a lacrosse scholarship at the University of Richmond, a school he claimed was everything he wanted. The school has a great academic reputation, is in a perfect region, and the campus is awesome. Life was perfect for Timothy. But less than a month into his freshman year at college, disaster struck. Like Neil, Timothy had to drop out of school almost as quickly as he got there, but not for the same reason. He sustained a terrible shoulder injury, an injury so bad that it required serious surgery and him to drop out of Richmond. This was a devastating blow to Timothy. Lacrosse was his identity, and he was so talented at the sport, but this career-ending injury put him in a dark place, a place where he thought that dealing drugs with Neil was a fantastic idea. While sitting in his childhood bedroom, bored out of his mind, Timothy was desperate to earn some money.
Let's be real. If your dad is who this video says he is, you know what I'm saying, leader of an HR firm, this, that, and the third, nepotism runs the world. He can get you a job somewhere, doing something, making some great money. especially enough for you to heal up and do what you got to do to go back to school. I don't know how much it costs to go to Richmond, but if he's paying $35,000 a year for you to go to high school, he definitely can pay for you to go to college. This shit, like, bro, it just goes to show you when you have it a little bit too good, you don't really realize how good you got it. Like, what? Nigga said I broke my arm.
Even though he smoked in high school, he had never dealt drugs or shown interest in it at all. But him not having lacrosse anymore threw all logic out the window. It's not clear how Neil and Timothy got in contact. Maybe Neil hit up Timothy in the same way he did Stocky. But regardless of how they reconnected, they started to formulate a plan around the fall of 2013 to push some serious amounts of product. And I mean it when I say serious. Neil and Timothy weren't going to be the stereotypical college dropouts who slung dime bags to 16-year-olds. No, they wanted to control the entire drug market within the Philadelphia suburbs, including all high schools and colleges. Timothy texted Scott, "Every nug on the main line is about to come from you and me. We will crush it. Once you go tax-free, it's hard to go back." The main line that Timothy was talking about was the Philadelphia main line.
But look at how many colleges there are. Hartford College, Bryn Mawr College, Delaware College.
17 wealthy towns just west of Philadelphia that included Haverford and Villanova. Timothy named their newfound operation the Mainline Takeover Project, solidifying their ambition of becoming drug kingpins for the wealthy. But to have an operation this big, you need to have some sort of concrete plan. The duo knew this and started to plan out what the operation would look like, starting with defining their home base. They landed on using Neil's apartment, a cramped one-bedroom place on the second floor of a flimsy-looking rental house less than 900 feet from Haverford. It seemed like an okay spot, especially considering no one would ever go near it because it was, quote, covered in like 500 dog turds, according to his neighbors. What? This is where pounds of weed from California would be shipped, thanks to Neil's connections, which he made from working in the dispensary. The duo would take this weed and repackage it for distribution while also dealing within the apartment, which was probably pretty clutch for Haverford students. I mean, they could literally stroll out of 7th period and be less than 3 football fields away from snagging some bud. But okay, the base of operations was set in stone. But how are they going to take over the main line's drug supply? It's not like they had any connections to the drug dealing world, so what would they do? Well, they utilized the only connections they had left. The Haverford lacrosse team. You see, the elite school's lacrosse program was a tight-knit group. The powerhouse team thought of themselves as elite and had their own culture, a culture that was bound together by recreational drug use. A Haverford grad said, if you took one sport and said which one parties the most, it's the lacrosse guys. And the duo planned on fully utilizing that aspect of their bond to get their old teammates to deal drugs for them. Timothy and Neil's plan had them jittering with excitement. I mean, they both had similar stories, a great high school life, a dark turn post-graduation, and now a need for a sense of accomplishment. They had the motivation to accomplish.
Okay, so I don't know about the other guy who tore his shoulder, but we know for a fact that you got a job before because you worked at the dispensary and you worked at a bunch of other things. You could have got back into school somewhere else. Well, really, you should have never got kicked out in the first place, because if you were going to get a job, you should have just worked a job through college. Like, people be acting like it's so bad and this, that, and the third, bro. Like, and like I said earlier, it's because they had it too easy, bro. That's the only thing that makes sense to me as to why they're doing what they're doing, because this shit makes no sense. You have a dude, now, I ain't gonna cap, the first guy, he's more middle class, you know what I'm saying? He probably didn't have, you know what I'm saying, he probably didn't have it as easy as the other guy. But nonetheless, when you go to a school like Haverford, one thing that I know and I was told, bro, when you go to a certain place like Haverford, Georgia Tech, Villanova, and all these, like, you know what I'm saying, these prestigious schools, they're gonna have prestigious people in them. Make the connections that you need. Oh, I know this person can give me a job down the line. Let me befriend him. Oh, this person, his dad's fucking Donald Trump. Let me befriend him. Or this person, his dad is the executive of an HR firm making over $400,000 a year. Let me befriend him. He can show me the way to make $400,000 a year. Like, come on, bro.
Something. But after they lost what they loved doing, they didn't know what that something could be. But Now they did. According to an ex-coach from Haverford, most alumni go on to become great fathers and husbands and give back to the prep school in the form of money or time. But instead of those things, the duo was going to give back drugs. In October 2013, Neil and Timothy officially began the Mainline Takeover project and got off to a decent start. Neil successfully recruited 2 lacrosse friends right off the bat, a 23-year-old named Chester Simmons and, as we saw before, a 23-year-old named Stocky Euler. Timothy, on the other hand, brought in an 18-year-old senior at Haverford named Dan McGrath, a guy Timothy described as a highly motivated poor kid. Just convinced my Haverford guy to build his empire and stop Gramps. Sounds good to me, like those kinds of kids. But of course, these kids weren't the only ones dealing. Neil and Timothy were putting in equal, if not more effort to push product. And the kids that came by home base to cop knew they weren't fucking around. One kid who bought from them, remember,
put all this effort into building a legitimate business, where they would be right now. And people don't really understand that or can grasp that concept. The amount of time and effort that you've put into doing something illegal, you can put into doing something legal. It might take a little bit longer, but it's gonna last a lot longer as well. I done seen so many people build a drug empire, do this, that, and the third. You balling for 3-4 years and get 30 years in jail. Like, every year you balling on the street for real, you get a decade in jail in the drug game. Like, that shit is not it, bro.
Climbing up the creaky wooden staircase of Neil's apartment and entering his living room to see the ounce of weed he was buying next to a 9mm handgun. He had his guns out in plain view, the guy recalls. White kids see a gun, myself included, and they're not going to cause a problem. Now, personally, I wouldn't be the type of guy to keep buying drugs from a crackhead-looking fellow with a gun, but this threatening aura seemed to work. Over the first few months in operation, the Mainline Takeover project was going precisely as planned. Timothy kept supplying his 18-year-old senior, and Neil would drive ounces to Lafayette and Gettysburg College to supply Chester and Stocky, while also continuing their efforts to recruit more high school kids. Timothy and Neil were drooling at the opportunity on their hands, and they were already dreaming bigger. I don't know what you make in a week, but I want to make $2,000 if I do this. And there are still a lot of holes to fill because I have to grow my business. I'll be straight with you on how I flip it, and we can work out the numbers. I'll help you with whatever I can. 2,000 is definitely feasible. Like I said, I'm trying to start a business and I'm learning how to run this one well. Just have to find the right people and don't rush it. Everything has a way of falling into line. Yeah, the question is, can I find the right guy that can run that operation? And it turns out they found a ton more people that could do it. Timothy and Neil were getting really good at recruiting more people into their operation and expanding their network of sub-dealers. Timothy took a more good cop approach, offering to help dealers wherever they needed it while being ultra professional with his interactions. And by professional, I mean like legit business professional. He would visit various high schools in the main line, such as Lower Merion, Radnor, and Harriton, and woo high schoolers while wearing a full-blown suit and playing up the bling aspect of his trade. While showing these kids the large amounts of pot he had, he would convince them to join the operation by offering drugs on credit and being very relaxed with his enforcement. My Mainline Takeover project is coming together fast, and I'm telling all of my guys I never want their schools to be dry, cause I always got pissed as shit when I couldn't find bud. This last week made me realize how much I love money. Yes, he would keep in close contact with his guys and make sure there was never a drought of drugs within his high schools, but he never issued any threats. Unlike Neil, this man took a way more aggressive approach, constantly pushing his guys.
With that being said right there, I'm finna go ahead and put this on the record. I think he's gonna be the reason that somebody ends up telling, because of how he is, and he's gonna bring everything else down.
Identify new customers and carrying a menacing tone when they didn't do what he wanted. You have $1,000 bounty on your head. I will find you. Piece of shit, heard you ripped off more people on your campus. Between the nice guy and dickhead approach, the duo was quickly expanding into many more high schools and colleges. They tapped into 5 different high schools and 3 colleges while recruiting 9 total sub-dealers in the process. Not bad for being in business for only 4 months. With their now enlarged network of drug dealing kids and more money coming in from offering different products like cocaine and ecstasy, the guys couldn't have been happier with how things were going. When you were a senior at Haverford, did you ever think you could pull that? Only dreamed it. There is a much bigger market than just a pound at each of these schools. Conestoga alone is a couple a week. Neil and Timothy finally had a sense of accomplishment in their life. All of their hardships were in the past, and now all they could think about doing was tackling more schools, slinging more drugs, and growing the Mainline Takeover project as much as they could. This operation was everything they could have asked for, but in the blink of an eye, it all came crumbling down. It turns out that while the duo was actively growing their operation, the Montgomery County's narcotics enforcement team was actively building a case against them. In January 2014, less than 2 months after the genesis of the mainline takeover project, the NET was hot on their trail, piecing together their operation from the ground up. And it wasn't a hard one to piece together at all. You see, Timothy and Neil might have had a great education in the traditional sense, but they didn't grow up as drug dealers. Simply put, they had absolutely no fucking clue how to run a drug operation. Sure, they were recruiting sub-dealers fast and moving weight quickly, but they didn't think about protecting themselves at all. All of their sub-dealers used their personal cell phones to communicate, phones that were easy to track down by the NET after they received some anonymous tips. The team was able to pinpoint 4 of the duo's sub-dealers and set up controlled drug buys to capture them. The first was a 17-year-old nicknamed MGM, who was known for flexing his shoe collection and posting about his drug dealing on Instagram. How dumb can you get?
So it turns out that it wasn't Neil's fault. From what I see, you know what I'm saying? It was probably the sub dealers, but rich white kids who never been in that life, don't have to be in that life, don't know what they doing, don't know how to move, they self-snitching.
MGM's controlled buy took place, he tried to save grace by launching his jars of weed out of his childhood bedroom, but the jars literally landed in the arms of a detective and he was arrested shortly after. The remaining 3 dealers were successfully caught too, and according to police, all of them admitted to dealing, sending incriminatory text messages, and would later snitch on Neil and Timothy. The NET now had more than enough information to confront the duo. Timothy was up first and was shell-shocked when detectives knocked on his childhood home and arrested him on February 28, 2014. Luckily for him, he didn't really have much on him, just a pound of kush and $800. But Neil's bust was a different story. The detective seized about 8 pounds of marijuana, 23 grams of cocaine, 11 grams of ecstasy, 3 grams of hash oil, and $11,000 in cash from Neil, along with 3 books about massively successful drug rings. Books that
oh my god, you got books about drug rings too?
Assume he never touched. After the dust had settled from their arrest, the NET finally had time to go through both the guys' cell phones, collecting a treasure trove of incriminating information from their text messages. They found communications about everything, from texts about meeting up with dealers, how much they were going to pay, all the different kinds of drugs they sold, and much more. Their cell phones revealed the entire scope of their business, and when April 21st, 2014 rolled around, it was finally time for them to face the music. On that spring afternoon, Timothy was the first to arrive at the courthouse in Ardmore, a mile east of Haverford High School. His partner showed up shortly after, looking much more pissed off.
Get the fuck out of my face. Fuck you.
Timothy, Neil, and 9 suspected sub-dealers, along with 2 juveniles, stood in front of the judge on counts much more severe than dealing pot. They were charged with manufacturing and delivering controlled substances, criminal conspiracy, and dealing in a corrupt organization, among other drug-related charges. And the community of Haverford was dumbfounded. The duo's parents were in no rush to talk to anyone, with both families slamming their front doors in the face of reporters as a clear sign. Some people in their lives, however, were more open to speaking. It's crushing to me. These guys are not too far removed from the program. I feel bad for their families. It's a sad day. It's the ultimate backstab. We couldn't have done more for this kid, and it was thrown back in our face. Buried at the core of this scandal, the Haverford school tried to remain quiet. They instructed staff to stay silent and would postpone interviews left, right, and center to avoid speaking up about the situation. But it seemed like they were saving their statement for the graduating class of 2014. I'll briefly just touch on the subject that's been the subject of more media than I could ever imagine. And I'll declare from this stage and from any pulpit that I can get that the Haverford School will not be defined by the bad decisions of a few people. We as a community, all the faculty, all the parents, all the students will not let that happen. We will fight to continue to earn our well-deserved outstanding reputation as an extraordinary school with remarkable boys. The scandal that rocked Haverford wasn't just about drugs. It was about the stunning contrast between the privilege and promise of the duo and the choices they made. As one of Timothy's friends told the Washington Post, this is a huge story because of the the prestige of the schools involved. It's the uniqueness of the perpetrators. You see, these weren't kids who just grew up on the streets with nothing to lose.
Fact.
These were kids from affluent families
Shit
and
that made no
affluent
sense,
neighborhoods
bro.
who were given access to one of the best educations in the country. And that's what makes this story so interesting. Neil and Timothy had every advantage in life: supportive families, access to elite schooling, a head start most people would dream of. And yet, they threw it all away. Instead of leveraging their education to follow traditional paths to success, they chose to take a detour into drug dealing, believing they could build a Pablo Escobar-level drug
But the
ring.
thing about it that I always broke down, like, bro, we done all did some things that we ain't proud of. But one thing that I would sit right here and say, bro, before I got too deep into anything, bro, you got to look at who's the biggest at what they do in your lane. El Chapo. Now, I know this is before El Chapo and everything got locked up. El Mayo, jail. El Chapo, jail. Big Meech, jail. El Chapo's son, jail. El Chapo wife, jail. You end up dead or in jail, bro. And I know those are in a different state, but bro, I mean a different country.
Their ambition that led to their
Everybody go
downfall.
to jail.
It was their profound miscalculation, thinking that they could blend their privileged
come on,
upbringing
bro.
with the reckless world of drug dealing, without realizing they were wholly unprepared for what they were getting into, and the repercussions of their actions spoke
They're
to
probably
them.
gonna
A
get
little
a
while
dub,
later, in
bro.
October of the same year, Timothy and Neil pled guilty to all of their charges, and their final court appearance later that month would be the day they finally got sentenced. But it ended up not being so bad for one of them. That day was a lot different than their initial appearance in April. While the scandal was still piping hot back then, it had cooled down a lot at this point, with barely any reporters covering the sentencing. What seemed to have taken their place was family. Timothy's family, to be exact, who were all there in support. And it wasn't just his father, mother, and brother. It was everyone in his life. His therapist, his boss, his Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor. Around 50 people came out to support and speak on behalf of the 19-year-old defendant, and their touching stories really resonated with the judge. Timothy was given a very light sentence for his crimes, only 9 to 23 months in county jail and 5 years probation. Unlike Neil, who had nowhere near the same support and received 5 to 15 years in state prison. And better yet,
that's why I tell you, if you don't have the funds, if you don't have the connections, you do not need to be out here committing crimes. One dude, like I said, going back to his father, great situation that he was birthed into. He got what he needs. He got 9 months. While his co-defendant, who did the same thing he did, just got caught with a little bit less, got 15 years in state prison. And he went to county jail. He didn't even go to prison. He didn't even go to prison. He went to county jail. Shit crazy, bro.
Timothy finally didn't take his lucky situation for granted. While being in jail for 7.5 months, surrounded by more drug use than ever, he got completely sober by sticking with healthy habits like working, exercising, writing letters, and maintaining contact with his extensive support system. An impressive feat, considering he had been drinking and doing drugs since he was 14.
Damn.
Upon his release, he was accepted into a new college, a school called Cabrini, where he made the lacrosse team and even won a D3 national championship. After graduating in 2019, he founded Synergy Houses, 2 sober living homes for men, and regularly speaks about his story of dealing drugs and his path to sobriety to this day. Neil, on the other hand, is likely still—
You could have been doing this shit all alone, bro. You didn't have to take this weak ass detour to make a couple bucks, bro. You did not have to do that.
serving his lengthy prison sentence, as there's been no info publicly released suggesting otherwise.
That's tough, bro. That's tough. But like we said, bro, in a capitalist society, bro, just keeping it a bean, right? In a capitalist society, we are not equal. There's nobody who is equal. We are not equal. But it's ran by the money. If you have money, it will be easier for you to get around and do this, that, and the third, to wiggle out of places that otherwise you couldn't. For instance, look at the bail system. If you have bail money, you can get out of jail. If you don't have enough money to make your bail, you sitting in there. Dude probably had a great fucking lawyer and a great defense team all the way around versus his friend who didn't have it all shit together. And that's what happens. You feel what I'm saying? So with that being said, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Get in that comment box, tell me how you felt about this video. With that being said, it's your boy Key checking out. And don't do some shit that you don't gotta do. If you got another option, which there's always another option, even if you are from the trenches, even if you are from the hood, go with the latter, bro. Don't do this. Don't do this simple shit that you think is gonna be quick and easy, because it's gonna come with a lot of problems that are unforeseen. And you don't know it ain't gonna come. So I'm gone.